that Astana Presidential Club for Sport.
Mm-hmm.
And that they give the money all Olympic champions. Olympic champion, or if you world champion, you will receive around $3,000 per month. It's a salary, because they will do just training, and the government will cover all your costs during the training and during the competition. And they increase the budget for the Olympic sports in the.
Galim, what is your take? I mean, was there any kind of particular step taken by the Kazakh authorities to prepare for this Olympic Games compared to the previous such competitions, for instance?
Muhammad, as Ruslan mentioned, the Presidential Astana Club,
right,
providing so many facilities and financing those elite athletes throughout years. So the last 3-4 years. Reason for that, for the success in Rio. Second one is as I've already told, the huge budget allocation.
Mm-hmm.
So state spending on the sports overall, it's increasing, and it's around $100 million per year. And of course, the encouragement is coming from from one more side. It is a kind of per one Olympic gold medal pays around $250,000 US, and silver medal costs 75. I guess. Oh no, 150, and bronze 75,000. Even those athletes who finished competition on 4th, 5th, places, they're also being paid some amount of grants, like around $5,000 or $4,000, $3,000. One of the main reasons for the great success in Rio, especially in Rio, because the Kazakh team won the record number of medals,
right.
17. And the one more reason might be, constant search for Olympic medal hopefuls among the neighboring countries, and just attracting new names. Mentioned about the wrestler from, I guess her name is Yulduz Eshmatova.
Yes.
And in Rio, one of the gold medals got again a former Azerbaijani national who's been naturalized very recently. And he participated in the competition as a Kazakh national. Only a year ago, he was Azerbaijani citizen. So it's also one of those strategies to increase the number of medals and improve the performance of the athletes.
To look into the Kazakh team in entirety, what percentage of those medal winners were not like a native Kazakhstani, but kind of imported from the other nations, Galim?
In Rio, I remember Farhad Harki from China, Nijat Rahimov from Azerbaijan, and Odgon Tsetsek Galbadrag from Mongolia, who won bronze in judo.
And also Guzal Manurova.
Yeah, Guzal Manurova, of course. She's a former Russian national, so she's a former Russian athlete who was invited to Kazakhstan some 5 or 6 years ago. For 4 medals of 17 were won by former foreigners. Recently naturalized Kazakhstanis.
You mentioned budget allocation, the secret behind Kazakhstan's victory, but Turkmenistan is pouring millions and billions of dollars.
My guess is Turkmenistan, although is allocating that large sum of money facilities, but I guess the lack of experience in participating in at a higher level competitions was one of the reasons for poor performance, I guess, because Turkmenistan has still remained as a closed country. It would be more useful for them to host some, high-level competitions as well as participation in international events, sports events.
Idil, please join the discussion if you have any point to raise the things that we have discussed so far. But my question is that other champion in this game was also Uzbekistan. So what is your opinion which made this victory possible for Uzbeks? I mean, you mentioned about the cash earlier, that Bishkek is not allocating much of the resources for that. Forgive my ignorance if I don't know this properly. The sports sector in Uzbekistan might be facing similar situation, but again, they've shown themselves with a strong performance.
The phenomenal success of Uzbekistan, of the Uzbek boxing team, I think is being discussed around the world. I think lots of experts, lots of sports professionals, much more competent than me or all of us, they are discussing it and they cannot find the answer because it's a miracle. It's a miracle. And of course, many of us are asking, it's true. In Soviet Union, lots of champions, Soviet champions who went on to become European champions or world champions came from our region and also from Kyrgyzstan. But unfortunately, traditions of the Kyrgyz box have been lost. But we see and we celebrate that in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, it wasn't only preserved, but it's actually developed. Of course, there are some other ingredients to the success because it's not only money. If it's not only huge population, I think it's also some management. It's a great attention from the individual presidents, state leaders. I'm one of those people who, in the debate on spending this money, actually, calls on our own government and our own people not to get overexcited about these Olympic Games and about investing too much money into that, because we see countries like Finland richer than us, but they don't get too much disappointed with winning only one bronze medal. We see lots of Arabic nations, we see lots of Asian, African nations who do not care much for the Olympic success. I think we should invest in the mass sports, and we should leave the elite sports to bigger nations. And actually, we should cheer, of course, for our neighbors of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan.
You just outlined a few lessons to draw from these Olympic Games, Galim. So, what is the lesson from this result in Rio for Central Asia, and how it is going to affect or should affect future of sports in the region?
I think nothing that much have changed in Central Asia if you see it from the perspective of the ruling elite. The Olympic Games, any Olympic Games, are considered at the arena of demonstration of the the superiority of the economy and policy, government policy, just like in the Soviet period. So as Idil mentioned about the perception of the Olympic Games, it's also, I think it must be one of the lessons to learn, because the main sense of, the main purpose of holding Olympic Games is, making the sports more popular among the mass. And the elite sport athletes, I guess, they should be supported by the private clubs, by the amateur private clubs, not by the state. In the recent coming years, there'll be big changes, in this field, because Olympic champions, they are hailed and they're, welcomed as the heroes, and their success is understood as the success of the nation, not personal achievement of a remarkable athlete, unfortunately,
right.
In most cases. And I guess the Team US or Team GB, we know that some of them, I guess the majority of these athletes, they don't get any compensation, any grants from the state for their medals.
Right.
But they become the big names for the millions of teenagers, for the millions of children.
Right.
And they become heroes of the younger generation. For example, I know how cycling is very popular among, school children, among students in the UK, because of the success of the Team GB in these particular sports. So I guess Central Asian states, they should pay more attention for the health, for the public health, and for popularization of sports among mass.
Then what the Turkmen president is doing to encourage sports in the country seems to be correct in respect to what you are saying, because there is a huge push by the president himself for people to ride bikes, and Turkmenistan is famous with it is a month-long health and sports activity.
In the case of Turkmenistan, the government of this country stands alone in its forceful methods of popularizing mass sport and encouraging the athletes, to win medals, because they're very Soviet in their approach to encourage or to force to make their athletes to shine. So my opinion is, of course, it's too hard to shift from one platform to another in a very short period of time, but I guess the case of Kazakhstan might be, accepted as a more successful to popularize sports, mass sports, and to get some higher results at the international events, at the international sports events, by both allocating budget money, at the same time improving facilities for boarding sports schools. But again, it's also very, even in the UK, there are so many anxieties about the state sponsoring, about the state spending that big money for the Olympic team. So there is always a danger of getting Sovietized again in sports. So side effect. There is a great risk of getting that type of side effect of Sovietization.
Adil, final point from you. You being a former official, being in the discussion of allocation of money to various sectors, including sports, I'm curious about your message to the Turkmen president, because we spend millions of dollars to building facilities and all these activities. Then he says that you guys, the ones who are preparing for the Olympics Games, who were in the Olympics Games, he says that you betrayed to the motherland. So it's a big issue. So what's your message to Turkmen president?
Olympics is always about celebrating youth, celebrating ideals of freedom, of liberty. We, of course, all grew up in a totalitarian country of Soviet Union, which was a great, huge success internationally in the Olympic Games. But I think if we will discuss Turkmenistan, we can ask President of Turkmenistan actually to give more freedom to his youth, because this financial expense, which is not very likely to give many results in such small nations as Turkmenistan, or actually providing the best opportunities for his youth, and just like small northern European nations like Finland or Norway or other countries, where youth should feel free to do whatever it wants and ambitions.
Right.
I'd like actually to record my disagreement with Galim, I think, who was actually very critical of Kazakh expenses on these elite sports. We're actually watching with great admiration how much Kazakhstan is investing into these prestige projects. Next year will be the Expo. Next year, Kazakhstan will sit on the Security Council and all these initiatives. I think being successful in the Olympics or in the international sports, it's also part of that strategy of putting Kazakhstan on the world map and actually of showcasing. I think it was a great image, I think, transmitted around the world that Kazakhstan is a multi-ethnic nation, that it celebrates harmony in the country. And I think you guys can afford it. I think success from these international victories actually is translated into more domestic cohesion, into the more, they're providing these national role models of various ethnicities, which all celebrate patriotic success of Kazakhstan. And you have the money, you can spend it. But actually, of course, it's huge amount of money, $100 million, if it's true, spent annually on this Olympic of less than $9 million, or maybe even $8.5 million, which is spent by our state budget for all sports, sports.
Just one thing to mention: $100 million is the overall budget, sports budget of Kazakhstan.
Okay, not only the Olympic Games.
Yeah, and around $41 million for the elite sport.
Oh,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there were some points on your address by Edil Galim. Your final point.
Of course, Edil is right. Edil is right in his opinion about the results of state sponsorship of the elite sports in terms of mass celebration, in terms of feeling this integrity, in terms of ethnic integrity or national. But this strategy in Kazakhstan, because so many activists, so many journalists, so many politicians, they have different view of that, because Kazakhstan, despite spending that much money on sports, despite hosting, as you said, lavish, meetings and forums and for international events, despite all of those things, the half of the population in Kazakhstan, they don't have gas in the oil-rich country, gas-rich country. I mean, liquid gas, and those problems, every time are highlighted during the discussion of the state budget or state spending on sports and other.
Thank you very much, Galim Bukash, editor of the Kazakh service of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, for your insightful thoughts. Also, Edil Baysalov from Bishkek, sports and political commentator who was also part of the Kyrgyz team in 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games. Edil, thank you for your participation in the Majlis today. And also from Rio, Ruslan Medilbekov, the sports reporter for our Kazakh service, was also participating in the Majlis today. Thank you very much, Ruslan. And this is it from me, Mohammed Tahir, host of the Majlis, the Central Asia podcast at Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Bye-bye.
Bye.